Hey, I was just cleaning out my palette and I wanted to do a review of the Winsor Designer's Gouache set before I fill it up again. The set that I have comes with 10 tubes of 15 milliliters. They were made in France and you can buy the colors individually or in a set like I did. There are 82 colors total and 67 of the 82 colors have either extremely permanent or permanent light fastness. The colors that I have are zinc white, yellow ochre, ultramarine, spectrum red, primary yellow, primary red, primary blue, yellow deep, ivory black, and permanent green medium. So this is a pretty classic palette with a warm and cool yellow, red, and blue, plus white, black, and a green. This is the newer tube. You can see that it's got the name on it, a little swatch on the front. By the way, that swatch is not really accurate. And on the back, it's got the pigment information, the light fastness rating, the opacity in that little square, and its health ratings. I also have a really old tube that my sister gave me. It's totally different and it was made in England. Since there are not a lot of gouache reviews, I really wanted to give you guys as much information as possible to be able to see what the paint looks like in many different forms. So this is me just squeezing the paint into my palette. You can see that sometimes it's a little chunky. I'm using the Mijello or Mijello Stay Tight palette. This is great because it allows the paints to stop completely drying out and it gets really messy in there. I've also mixed some of my own colors, as you can see. There are more than just 10 colors in my palette. I also wanted to let you guys see what the paint looks like after it's been in there for a day. It's totally hard. Look at how my brush is just struggling to get anything out of that paint. That's why I normally modify my gouache with a combination of glycerin, oxgall, and honey. So this is what the gouache looks like after I've added in my custom mix. You can see it looks much smoother, and the white, which is really difficult to keep moist, is totally liquid anytime that I want it to be. I love it. This would not be possible without my additions. I swatched out each of the colors on a black and white background. A couple of times the black smears a little bit. I used a waterproof India ink, but I guess it wasn't completely dry, so sometimes it smudges a bit. That's not the paint, but that's my problem with the ink. You can see that the paints are all very opaque, even the yellow, which is often not very opaque. I don't know if you'd agree with me, but I really don't like the way that these paints dilute. They look very chalky and they lose strength very quickly. The thing that is nice about these paints is that if opacity is something that's really important to you, you should have no problem whatsoever with any of these. Winsor & Newton adds enough chalk to even their transparent pigments that you are able to cover black, as you can see. You might also notice that I'm having a bit of trouble with the texture. I find that it's very difficult to get the correct pigment to water ratio with these paints. I often feel like I should put more pigment on, but then it doesn't flow very well. So when I add oxgall, that helps a lot with the flow for these paints for me. I'd also say that I'm not really excited about the colors that they chose here. I wouldn't have chosen this green. I would have liked a primary blue that's actually more like phthalo blue since it's using that pigment. I wouldn't have chosen two reds that are very close to each other in the spectrum. I know that this is a pretty typical color range that people use for beginner sets, but it's not really a great way to get a huge range of colors, and I find myself using my transparent watercolors to modify the gouache, which is not really a big deal, but transparent watercolors are also expensive, so I'd rather just have gouache that does what I want it to do. Of course, I could have just chosen different colors instead of buying a set, but the set was cheaper. Also, I love this color. It's basically something like an aqua rose. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it's completely and totally fugitive. I don't think they make this color anymore. The white, as you can see, is totally opaque. This is a zinc white, so that's pretty cool. And the black is, well, black. Since there are two sets of yellow, red, and blue, I'm making two different color charts to show you all of the possibilities of colors that you can mix with these sets. Even though I said that these are not my favorite colors, you still can make a really large range of colors, as you can see. The colors mix together really well. I have no problem making new shades. They don't get muddy or dirty or anything. They're very vibrant. All of the colors have pretty good tinting strength. In case you're curious of what I'm doing, I have the three primary colors here, and every single color on this wheel is mixed from the three primaries. So I have red, yellow, and blue, and on the right side I have a purple triangle, on the left side an orange triangle, and on the bottom green. So those are the secondaries, and in the outer wheel I have the primaries, secondaries, and tertiary colors. In total, that's 12 colors that you can mix just from free pigments. I also have another one of these, since as I said we have two sets of red, yellow, and blue, so in total that's got at least 24 colors. Of course you can make way more colors, especially when you think about the white and the black. By the way, doing this sort of color wheel is also just a really good exercise in mixing colors. It's really easy to get quite dark colors as well as quite light colors with this set. You can get kind of cartoony looks as well as natural ones. I also wanted to show you what the paints look like dry. You can see that the finish is quite different. It has a very matte finish, and for me, even a bit more chalky than gouache should be, but that's really up to your opinion. I'm not a fan, but it doesn't look terrible. I also wanted to show you a bit of how to blend, or how you can blend with these paints. The colors are very opaque, so they go on top of one another very easily. You can see, like, as soon as the colors touch each other, they're starting to mix and change into a different color. It took almost no effort to start to get that green. So this might seem a little boring, but I also wanted to show you the paint drying. You see how quickly it really gets a lot lighter when a dark color dries. Finally, I decided to do a painting with this gouache. I haven't really worked with this gouache in its raw form because I haven't really been a fan, but I wanted to see if it was as bad as I remember, and it's not that bad. It might sound weird, why don't I like these paints? I think I just wouldn't recommend them because I feel a bit of resistance when I'm using them. Something about the texture, something about the way they dilute doesn't really feel the best. They feel like they really need something added to them. And when I have my little mixture added to them, I love working with them. But that's an added cost and an added step that not everybody wants to do. Also, the Winsor & Newton paints are expensive. It really depends on where you live, but for me, I could actually get M-Gram or Schmincke paints for either the same cost or only slightly more expensive than these. And those paints are definitely artist grade and they have an entirely different feel. So it almost doesn't make sense to me to recommend these paints instead of other ones. On the other hand, I know that Winsor & Newton is much more widely available than Schmincke or M-Gram for many people. If you're in America, I would definitely recommend getting the M-Gram paints. If you're in Europe and it's cost effective, I would definitely say to get the Schmincke paints. Also, I haven't used these, but I have heard from many people that the Holbein paints are really great quality. If you have the ability to get any of the other ones, I think I would go with those unless you just really, really love Winsor & Newton and want to have a complete set of them. I think that Winsor & Newton definitely could come out with a better line of paints, but they only have one line of designer's paint, and I will commend that they are very light fast overall, so that's not really an issue. You don't really have to worry about fugitive colors unless you intentionally go out to seek fugitive colors. It's also very important to me that my gouache re-wets well because I don't want to just keep having to pour out from the tube and waste paint because the consistency is not the same as it would be fresh. I would rather work with gouache the same way that I work with watercolors and just re-wet the things that I have on my palette. That's also much more cost effective because it could be really easy to go through gouache much faster than you normally would watercolors. If you paint in really thin layers of gouache, then this probably isn't an issue for you, but if you build up lots of layers and you need thicker paint to go on top of thinner paint, that can be really difficult to re-wet the Winsor & Newton gouache to get to the right consistency. It always seems to be pretty watery when you re-wet it. On the other hand, the M-Gram paint gets to a pretty nice consistency even after re-wetting it with just a little bit of water. So that's it. I painted her and I had a lot of fun doing it actually. This is totally serviceable. You can make beautiful paintings with it. It just really depends on what's important to you in gouache. I give this 3 stars because it's definitely a solid paint. The colors are light fast, they are well constructed, they are opaque, they are perfectly fine to work with. It just doesn't go above and beyond, so 3 for average. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye! For those of you who are curious, this is the Kuretake gold paint. Look at that, it's just so gorgeous in the pan. Oh man. Look at it swirl in that water.